Good evening, everyone. The first padded practice of Pittsburgh Steelers training camp immediately answered one question that had been surrounding this team ever since camp opened. Even without live tackling, this is still going to be a physical football team. Mike McCarthy addressed the topic before practice, making it clear that the absence of players being taken to the ground does not mean the intensity has disappeared. Instead, the focus is on practicing smart while still allowing the offensive and defensive lines to battle in full pads. That approach follows what many NFL teams are doing today, and it reflects McCarthy's philosophy as he begins building this new version of the Steelers. One of the biggest announcements from McCarthy before practice was the return of the backs-on-backers drill later this week. While it was not part of the first padded session, its return signals that the coaching staff still wants to evaluate physicality, toughness, and pass protection in one of training camp's most respected drills. That immediately caught the attention of everyone following practice because it reinforces that competition remains at the center of everything happening in Latrobe. There was also significant roster news before anyone even looked at the practice field. Safety Darnell Savage is no longer with the team after being released. After dealing with injuries and failing to make an impact during his short time in camp, Pittsburgh decided to move on quickly. His roster spot has already been filled by Rayshawn Jenkins, who officially joins the safety room and even takes over the same jersey number Savage had been wearing. The Steelers wasted no time making the change, showing that every roster spot must be earned throughout camp. Unfortunately, the first notable injury of training camp also arrived during practice. Wide receiver Cole Burgess, who had just delivered one of the biggest offensive plays of the day by hauling in a deep pass from Allar, had to be carted off after suffering what appeared to be a lower body injury. The severity was not immediately known, but seeing a player leave the field that way is never something teammates or fans want to witness, especially after such an encouraging moment. Once the offense took the field, one theme became impossible to ignore. The Steelers are clearly placing a much greater emphasis on operating from under center. During the non-padded practices, there had been a heavy dose of shotgun formations, but as soon as the pads came on, the offense shifted toward under center formations, extensive play action concepts, and a much more balanced approach. That appears to be exactly the identity this offense wants to establish. The philosophy lines up with comments Aaron Rodgers made previously about the importance of play action on early downs, and it also reflects the influence of offensive coordinator Brian Angelesio, whose experience with Minnesota's play action system seems to be leaving an early imprint on Pittsburgh's offense. Everything about the first padded practice suggested this offense wants to create easier throwing windows while keeping defenses honest with a credible running game. Another player who continues building momentum every single day is Allar. Once again, the rookie quarterback put together another impressive performance, highlighted by a beautiful 60-yard completion to Cole Burgess during 7-on-7 drills. Reports from practice also describe several accurate throws over the middle, continuing what has become a very encouraging trend. Instead of looking overwhelmed by the speed of NFL training camp, Allar continues stacking productive practices one after another, giving coaches plenty of reasons to be excited about his development. The running game produced two very different storylines. Jaylen Warren appeared to own the day, consistently breaking off chunk runs and creating positive plays throughout practice. On the opposite side, Rico Dowdle struggled to generate much momentum. His toughest moment came during a 2-minute drill when a miscommunication with Aaron Rodgers resulted in an interception that ended the drive. While it's only one practice, these daily evaluations matter because every repetition helps shape the depth chart as preseason approaches. At wide receiver, one connection keeps getting stronger. Aaron Rodgers and DK Metcalf continue looking like they are developing chemistry at an impressive pace. Rodgers delivered what many considered his best throw of the day, dropping a perfectly placed deep ball down the left sideline to Metcalf, who continues receiving plenty of opportunities throughout camp. That partnership is becoming one of the biggest offensive storylines because each practice seems to produce another highlight between the veteran quarterback and his star receiver. Meanwhile, Michael Pittman Jr. remains relatively quiet during these early practices. That does not necessarily indicate a problem, but it does reflect the reality that earning Aaron Rodgers' trust takes time. Players who already have familiarity or stronger chemistry with the quarterback are naturally seeing more targets during team drills. As camp continues, one of the biggest questions questions will be whether Pittman becomes a larger part of the offense and starts seeing more opportunities in competitive situations. Based on everything we've seen from the first padded practice, the Steelers are beginning to reveal what they want this offense to become. The physical identity remains intact, the offensive structure appears more diverse than many expected, Drew Allar continues building confidence, Jaylen Warren delivered one of his strongest practices, and the Rodgers to Metcalf connection is becoming harder to ignore. But with the defense also making plenty of noise throughout the day, one major question remains heading into the next stage of camp. Do you believe this evolving offensive identity has what it takes to consistently compete against what already looks like a very aggressive Steelers defense? Let me know what you think in the comments. The defense wasted absolutely no time reminding everyone why so many people inside the organization believe it can become one of the NFL's most dangerous units this season. In fact, by the end of the first padded practice, the overall feeling coming out of Latrobe was that the defense had won the day. Considering that offenses usually need more time to develop chemistry during training camp, that outcome was not necessarily surprising, but the way Patrick Graham's defense accomplished it certainly grabbed attention. One of the biggest stories from practice was the creativity Patrick Graham brought to the field. Multiple observers noted that Pittsburgh's defense consistently disguised its intentions before the snap, showing pressure from several different angles and forcing the offense to react instead of simply executing its game plan. Defensive backs were creeping toward the line of scrimmage, inside linebackers were threatening the A-gaps, and blitz packages were coming from all directions. Rather than relying on a traditional four-man pass rush, Graham repeatedly challenged the offense with aggressive pressure looks that created confusion throughout practice. That is exactly the type of defensive philosophy many Steelers fans were hoping to see. For years, Pittsburgh defenses have built their identity around attacking quarterbacks, forcing mistakes, and dictating the pace of games. Based on what happened during this first padded session, Graham appears determined to bring that aggressive mentality back. More importantly, he now has an opportunity to combine creative schemes with a roster full of talented defenders capable of executing them. Another player who turned plenty of heads was Keeanu Benton. Reports from practice indicated that Benton enjoyed one of his strongest performances of camp so far. He consistently pressured quarterbacks, collected multiple sacks during drills, and showed versatility by lining up in different roles across the defensive front. At times, he worked as a 3 technique in nickel packages, while in base fronts, he shifted inside to nose tackle responsibilities. That versatility could become one of the biggest strengths of Pittsburgh's defensive line this season. If Benton continues developing the ability to handle double teams in the middle while still generating interior pressure, it gives Patrick Graham tremendous flexibility when designing different defensive packages. The Steelers have always valued defensive linemen capable of playing multiple roles, and Benton appears to be embracing exactly that challenge. Nick Herbig also made his presence felt from the moment the pads came on. According to reports from practice, Herbig played with tremendous energy throughout the session, constantly talking, competing, rushing the passer, and holding his own against the run. There has occasionally been criticism regarding his size, but the coaching staff clearly believes he is capable of handling an every down role. His performance during this first padded practice only strengthened that belief as he consistently found ways to impact plays regardless of the situation. The secondary also produced several encouraging developments. Asante Samuel Jr. and Dalen Everett continued putting together strong training camps, reinforcing the depth of Pittsburgh's defensive back group. Every quality performance from those depth players increases internal competition, and that's exactly what the Steelers want to see throughout camp. Healthy competition forces everyone to perform at a higher level, and the coaching staff now has multiple defensive backs, making legitimate cases for larger roles as preparations for the regular season continue. One of the surprise performers of the day came from an unexpected name. Safety Dano Slaughter quietly put together an impressive practice, earning praise for his work against the run, while also coming away with an interception during team drills. Those are exactly the types of performances that can change the trajectory of a player's training camp. While stars naturally receive most of the attention, coaches are constantly evaluating which lesser-known players are making the most of their opportunities, and Slaughter certainly gave the staff something to think about. The closing moments of practice only reinforced the defensive dominance. During the first team 2-minute drill, Aaron Rodgers successfully marched the offense all the way to the 1-yard line, appearing to put the unit in position to finish with a touchdown. Instead, a miscommunication between Rodgers and Rico Dowdle resulted in Patrick Queen stepping in for a crucial interception that ended the drive. The second-team offense was unable to find success either. Will Howard directed the offense during another 2-minute situation, but ultimately failed to finish the drive, turning the ball over on downs. Although Howard has shown encouraging flashes throughout camp, the 2-minute drill remains an area where he'll continue working as training camp progresses. These high-pressure situations often provide some of the best learning opportunities for young quarterbacks, and there will be additional chances during both camp and the preseason. Perhaps the most encouraging takeaway from the entire day wasn't simply that the defense won, it was Mike McCarthy's own perspective afterward. He acknowledged that defenses are usually ahead of offenses at this stage because offensive players must master a much larger volume of plays and timing. However, despite that expected learning curve, there was genuine optimism surrounding the offense. The belief inside the organization is that this offense already looks more organized and more explosive than it has in recent years, even while facing a defense that appears capable of becoming one of the league's better units. If both sides continue progressing at this pace, the Steelers could soon find themselves with one of the most competitive training camps they've had in years. The offense is beginning to establish its new identity under Mike McCarthy. Aaron Rodgers is building chemistry with several weapons. Young players like Allar continue gaining confidence, while Patrick Graham